Okay, well, unfortunately I have to restart. I had to restart this game. So this is Cam Plays Gaming in CPhil in the Kaga. He just started out here in bombs. He's gonna spot some destroyers. This attack right here, there's no way he's gonna rescue this. He needed to drop there. That is the drop. And it's a terrible drop. It's a rushed drop, but I mean, it's because he got surprised by DDs. He didn't know we're there. This drop has a chance of landing bombs in the vicinity of where the Kiev is. However, this continues through and dropping now, this thing's gonna be here. By the time the bombs land, there's no interaction at this point. So unfortunately, it would have been better to just save the bombs. Now, because we did watch this before, but unfortunately the replay bugged, personally, I would have preferred going over and scouting mid. We do see in this case 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 enemy ships. There's still 3 more we haven't seen. Information is power, but you're on bombs. These are DDs. You could make something happen. Realistically, though, if you're going to bomb this, Kaga bombs some people can make them perform very well, but they're not easy to perform well in. And if you're trying to do something, you need it to be impactful. You really want to hit 2 or 3 bombs. You've already been able to make 1 drop. It didn't net you anything, which is okay. It happens, but going in for the second drop. Now, this, I mentioned, so we are kind of redoing this. Placing the reticle here, this ship is moving in this direction, which means this ship is going to be on this line. And you put your reticle there, which means you're going to be bombing on this line. So these are not lining up. You're going to be bombing across the ship, which means it's less likely that you have the damage interaction. If you want to be able to strike the ship, you need to put the reticle over here so that you can start your turn. Your planes are moving in this direction, and then you start to roll onto the ship. So the ship is lined here. You put your reticle out this side, and then you roll onto the ship, which is how you're going to get all of your reticle onto this. You may not hit 4 bombs. You might hit 1. You might hit none if they just drop on the outside of the DD and they miss. But that's how you get the best reticle choice. So if you're going to roll, you put the reticle to the outside and move forward and then roll onto the target. I think it's just 1 in cap there. All right, so the next up is going to be torpedoes. Now, I will say, in the beginning, this side looks pretty good. It's a Baltimore single DD, a Vanguard. They look like they're bailing. You have a lot of assets over here. This flank is probably doing fine. You're working the flank that probably needs your assistance. Going in for the Mogami. This reticle is probably a little bit too forward just because replay bug, but he's turning in, so don't know if we're going to get much there. Turns out you lead the Bismarck really well here. I thought he was actually going to accelerate even more than this, but no, you get 4 torps off it, which is nice.
Fighter airborne.
Worth noting that you just got struck by, I assume that's the Enterprise. And he also dropped a fighter out here. The fighter's going to keep you lit. Now, he had that before. There was a fighter up here that was keeping you lit. And I did point out that the North Carolina could take a long shot at you and potentially rip out maybe half your health, in which case the Enterprise will absolutely ride you until you are dead. So in that case, when you were heading up in the north, you could have dropped a fighter to pull his off just to annihilate the spotting. And now he's going to have spotting over here as well. So you might actually want to move your carrier to be able to gun that down. And also, we went over this the previous time. On this flank, suddenly it's looking really sus. It turns out that the people that were over here said screw this flank and ran inward. So now they're here, kind of in the middle of a potentially crossfire. While you have 2 DDs against a DD, a sub, a Baltimore, which can do some significant damage to a destroyer if it lands the shells, and a Vanguard, which can do the same. At this point, this is looking harder and harder, like a nut that you're not necessarily going to crack, whereas trying to get influence over here might actually be the better choice. So you might actually want to move your carrier into the fighter, shoot it down, and move over to start working on this side of the flank, where most of your assets are. If you stay over here, that's okay, but you're going to be giving intermittent spotting to your team, but realistically, they should probably be running. There's 4 of them versus 5 or even 6 over here if we are missing it. Awkward drop. Got 2.
Concentrate fire on the designated target.
Terrible is on top of your sub, but the Edinburgh,
That's how it's done.
well, Provincian took him out.
Problem solved, sir.
Okay, Bismarck is down, which is nice. I think the...
Destroy. Fighter airborne.
Okay. So you're abandoning the Kiev to be able to strike the cruiser, which is okay, but 2 problems with this. Right now, the Kiev is the focus target. This is the thing that everybody is going to be shooting at, the Kiev. Are you going to hit the Kiev? Possibly. Maybe yes, maybe no. Kaga bombs can be awkward. So, sure. You decide, nah, I'm going to go after the D7. It's a cruiser, it's a bigger target, it's more likely you're going to get bombs into him. But, 2 things. First, and actually, you would think it's not in this order, but it is. First, the Kiev is the focus target. Ride the Kiev. Stay on top of them, keep them lit, keep them harassed. You don't even have to drop them if you don't want to. Stay on the Kiev. Because primary is always more important than, I can get a better hit. Now, if you're damage farming in randoms, sure, you might want more damage, and this is going to be more damage. Although, that leads to the second point. This ends up not being more damage. Why? Because you'd already taken a drop. So you're down to 8 planes, maybe 7. You might have lost 1 to AA or something. And you're going in on a D7. This is a Dutch cruiser that has monstrous amounts of continuous damage. This shreds planes, as we already see. And they have help. They've got a North Carolina that's chucking in AA. There's a Megami that's chucking in AA. There's a Kiev that's chucking in AA. So instead of going on the thing that's on the outside of the AA bubble, you're diving on the thing that's in the center of the AA bubble. And this AA is no fucking slouch. And we can see here, you've gone from probably 7 planes, maybe 6, all the way down to 1. You might not even get this drop off before the last plane dies. There's a lot of people that say AA does nothing, AA doesn't matter, oh, AA is a joke. It's not. When you start having 3 ships together in a group, that is a hard target. Even if their AA sucks, it's still worth knowing because all 3 of them have priority sector, and they just look at your planes, pop, 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 they hit O, and 1.5 planes are dead. Gone. Maybe 1.25 planes. Regardless. And then the shitty AA is going to keep working on the next few. If you're in a Kaga, that might actually be 2 to 3 planes. Bop! Gone. And then they're still working on it. And that's potentially like an attack run is just evaporated because 3 people hit priority sector. In this case, there's 4 people that can hit priority sector. So they're going to evaporate even faster if they just hit the OP key. So again, 3 is hard. You can strike hard targets if the hard target is the difference between a situation being resolved and not. And to be fair, the D7 is actually very low in health. So if you were able to get 4 bombs onto it, 5, whatever, 3 bombs, 4 bombs, you might get a kill. But because of the AA situation, that was not feasible. That was just not going to happen. So this is not the play. So once again, just to recap, this is the focus target. This is what you stay on. This does not matter. However, I can see how it's enticing because A, it's more damage, and B, it's really low health. And getting an asset off the field is more important, and a low health asset should be called primary. But in this case, this was not something you could help with, and you can see that because all your planes are dead. Oh, you did drop. You got a single bomb. Do you use slingshot to attack? No. The only carrier that can slingshot to attack is the Indomitable. No other carriers can. That's not technically true, but it becomes very complex to explain the situation. So the long and the short of it is, offensive slingshotting does not exist anymore except for the Indomitable, which requires use of the offensive slingshot, because that's how it was designed. Now I want to point out, the Kiev got smoke off while we were back in the carrier coming back or whatever. A few things here. The Enterprise has not been on you for a while now. So you can actually start to position more aggressively, maybe use an island or something. You could start pushing up. You could be here, and that would be okay. Because the Enterprise is now being pulled off. You can see both planes are working on this area of the map, which thankfully your DDs are not dead. So if they're looking at this, they're not looking at you. There's no destroyers down here that are going to spot you. There's a Kiev, and that's it. And this is the Kiev. So you don't have anything that can spot you all the way until your detection is up here. So you could use an island for cover. You could even, if you really wanted to be cheeky, try to grab this spot. But you should definitely be moving up a grid square at least, so your detection is here. You could theoretically go 2 grid squares, but let's just do 1. Let's get a little closer to make you more responsive. And 2, what if being on the Kiev was the difference between this getting mauled or not? Probably wasn't. Probably wasn't. But now that he's in smoke and the North Carolina's pushing, what are the odds that this dude eats every torp? Every single torp that the Kiev is going to throw at him and just die. And then suddenly it's all of them versus an Oland. This Kiev is such a big tool on this flank that you cannot ignore it. However, at this particular point, you have to ignore it because it's in smoke. You can't light it, you can't interact with it, you can't do anything, so you actually have to go in on the D7. Now, again, we just talked about AA, so there's a lot of AA here. We're gonna see how these planes go. So far, you're yellow on one plane. One plane is dead. Next plane is dead. Next plane is dead. Next plane is dead. 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 And you get a drop. And how many of those go down? That other one gets chiseled, another one, and 3 get out. So you lost 9 planes for the possibility of dropping the D7 once. Not a bad play. Not a bad play. Because the D7 is low, and if you got, 3 bombs, 4 bombs, a fire into him, that could be the difference between a kill or not. So it's okay to lose planes. It's okay to use assets to take hard situations. But North Carolina, Uland, North Carolina's probably dead to torps, probably. In which case, if that D7 dies, there's still a Megami, there's still a North Cal, there's still a Kiev. They probably just win the flank. So this is tough. If you're gonna start throwing, if you're gonna start using planes in a really heavy, get it done kind of situation, it needs to be like it's the end game. It's the Thanos fight. You're gonna have to make this happen, and losing like that trade is pretty monstrously painful. That's like being in a Lexington losing 7 planes to be able to drop 3 torpedoes. You get to do that twice, and then your torpedoes are gone. You don't have torpedoes anymore. They're pretty much gone for the next 7 minutes. Now, a Kaga can deal with these losses. No other CV can. No other CV can. You cannot do this on other CVs for any length of time. So please, please, please be aware of this, that a Kaga is going to trick you into a false sense of security that when you end up playing something else in a competitive situation, you may just blow through your resources and be completely stuck. Let's see. So you're starting to move north now, which is cool. Kiev kills the North Cal. Now it's just a lone Uland versus a Kiev that's going to be able to run him down. Now, I want to point out here that the Kiev is making a mistake. The Kiev is running down an Uland. Kiev has less health. Kiev does not have a heal at this tier. Uland is up tiered, I think. Uland, whatever, is tier 8 versus tier 7. May actually outgun the Kiev. And right now he's thinking, I have friends, but the Mogami is not in a position to take shots. The North Cal doesn't seem to be in a position to take shots, so it's just 1v1 and this is a losing fight. Unfortunately, you have torpedoes, which are very unlikely to do anything to the Kiev, but if you distract him, it's even more likely the Uland wins the gunfight, because he's busy not just fighting the Uland, he's fighting the Uland and you. The Uland. Whatever. So, this is not a bad play. Torping the Kiev, as long as, you freak him out or something, keep him mentally... Shit. You're absolutely, your friend is going to take him out, and that's great. Alright, so now the Megami's got shells in. And they hit. Needed to lead more there. Kiev is quite fast. Alright, so he's hearing beep noises and actually turns into a torp. So that's cool. There we go. Alright, so the Uland lives, which is nice. You could... So you popped a engine boost here, but I'm going to recommend something else. Pop a fighter. Why? Because if the Megami turns to chase, the Ulan doesn't have to spot him to know that the Megami is chasing. He's going to go behind a rock. Who knows what he's going to do? You never know what your teammate is going to do, so if you provide him with more information than he could ever need, he might still screw it up. But it's less likely he's going to turn into the Megami when the Megami turns south to take the fight, because there'll be some kind of information there. Don't be afraid to drop fighters before you commit to keep your targets lit, to continue giving that information flow after your planes are gone. So this isn't gonna matter. Well, I don't know. He's kind of playing shy. I assume he just jukes the torps. Okay. Looks like you're turning away to play safe here. You should actually be going north. Megami might be pushing, but you have an island. You have 42,000 health. You can take a few shots. The early game. Early game is when you have 12 enemies. That's a lot of people that can shoot you at once. Mid game is when you're down, you know, to 5 to 8 enemies. You're in the mid game right now. You're in the mid game with a really good amount of health. Late game is when you get down to the last 4. So worst case, if the Megami ends up taking a few shots at you, you'll probably be able to take shots back at it and kill it, or have a pretty good interaction because you have some friends here. You don't have to necessarily charge the Megami, but you could absolutely be coming up north to link up with some other ships, to have a better staging platform to be able to throw stuff into the enemy's teeth. Can recommend that. In this case, I think you actually should be bombing the North Carolina. So the Megami is starting to turn out. You can already see that. So the Megami is reducing his threat because he's not pushing to take map position. He's ceding map position to get away from you. And striking into a fighter just means you're losing planes for free. As opposed to striking North Carolina twice, you can strike a Megami once. I mean, if you're damage farming, the North Carolina is the better choice. If you're looking at plane reserves, the North Carolina is the better choice. It just comes down to, he popped a consumable. You got something out of him. You pulled out one of his resources that he's using to defend himself. All right, he's gonna have a fighter up for a minute. Awesome. Go find a different target. There's one right here. You could just go for the North Carolina. You don't have to force this. And it looks like I bugged out the thing again. Which sucks. So we're gonna have to restart this again? Yeah. Damn it, client. Stop bugging. Don't be like that, man. Don't do it. Just don't be like that. So we're gonna have to blur through this real quick, so hide your eyes because this is gonna be a little epileptic crazy. We'll get back to that point. We'll continue the replay review. Come on. So we were at bombing the Megami. I think your team had a pretty solid position.
General quarters.
Second bomb strike. Torpedoes going for Megami, then the Bismarck. Woot. Continuing torps. One into the Bismarck. Bombs look at the Kiev, turn for the D7, get murdered.
Roger.
More bombs going for the D7. Loss of lots of planes. Torps come out to see what they can catch. Work on the Kiev, result in kill. And shot into the Megami. Megami turns. This is where we were. So planes strike in. Daka daka daka. You lose 3 planes off that, plus you get to drop. And you have no second drop, but you got 3 hits into a Megami, so that's nice. I don't think the Megami has a heal. Pretty sure it does not. So that damage does stick. Also, you set a fire, so damage con might be down. Now you're going to get those 2 strikes. Oh, nice hit. Okay. Well, in this case, he's actually turning and presenting you a line. But don't forget, if you're going to curl, put the reticle on the outside and curl in. But yes, in this case, if he hard turns, he's just going to help you shoot him. Which is what he's going to do. What a bro. And that fire should stick. Yeah, still on bombs. Rockets on the Kaga are terrible. Okay. Oh, no, he put the fire out. Thought he damage conned. That fire's from a DD, but that's a kill.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
And at this point, it's just cleanup. Because you've got a lot of people, they don't. Lead more, that's 2 torps. Ooh, 3. Dispersion helped you out. Don't be afraid to lead a little more on the Kaga. Russian CVs, you have to lead even more, which is almost awkward at times. Fighter. Before you go in on this, there we go. There's the fighter. Good job. Now, because you have the 12 planes, you can eat the fighter damage and be able to strike a second time, so this is correct. Other CVs you would pre-drop before attacking a CV. One? Yeah. And this is just everybody's chasing stuff. Many planes, much oof.
Fighter airborne.
Whatever. So there's not much else to see here, so hopefully that was helpful.